Good morning, everyone. A very good morning. Shall we begin the session? Today's topic is defining the member functions. In the last class, we have started with the functions. What is the function? What is the use of functions? Today's topic is defining the member functions. So they can be defined at the two places, outside the class declaration or inside the class declaration. There are two parts by which we can declare, by which we can use the function definition. So they are irrespective of the member function, they are defined. They are used over here. So there are two parts in which we can define. One is outside the class definition, one is inside the class definition. Yeah, so that must be a simple task. Inside, outside is also a tedious task, but we can do that. So irrespective of the place of definition, the function should perform the same task, whether it is available inside or outside. Therefore, the code for the function body would be identical in both the cases. However, there is a subtle difference in the way the function header is used or is defined, but these approaches are discussed in detail in this section. That is, what is the use or why we are going to use the member functions within that variable only. Yeah, they are used as a definite variable, as are defined separately or outside. Okay, so there are two parts in this. One is outside the class definition, one is inside the class definition. And it is obvious that irrespective of the place of definitions we are using, so the function should be disclosed should perform the same task. Therefore, the code for the function body would be identical in both the cases, in both the requirements. However, there is a subtle difference in the way the function header is defined. Both these approaches are discussed over here. So outside the class definition, so these are declared inside a class that has to be defined separately outside the class. So there are functions that will be declared inside or outside, that depends on the requirement of the user. Whether the requirement that the class will be defined inside, that will be defined inside, otherwise it will be defined outside. And their definitions are very much like the normal functions. They should have a function header and a function body. And since C++ does not support the old version of the function definition, so Insight prototype also must be used for defining the function header. And an important difference between the function header or the member function and the normal function is that a member function can be used that incorporates a membership identity that have been labeled in the header. And this label tells what should be done, which class should be done, which class should support. There is the identity label in the header, and this label tells the compiler which class the function belongs to. And the general form of a member function is return type, class name, function name, argument declaration. So the function body. So we are using the function body that will be declared in this one. So this is the main structure, or we can say that this is the main syntax of the function definition. And the membership label class name tells the compiler that the function name belongs to the class name. That is, the scope of the function is restricted to the class name specified in the header line, and the symbol scope resolution operator will be used to find out or to fetch out the values, because it is a class definition, so we are using the scope resolution operator. For example, consider the member function, that is the get data and the put data that is discussed. So they may be coded as follows: void item get data int a, int or float b. Then the a will be assigned to the number and the b will be assigned to the host. Then void item put data void cout number is number and then cost. So since these functions do not return any values, the return type is also void, and their arguments are also declared using the inside prototype. So they are declared as an inside prototype. They are declared as a put data or the get data that will be declared over here. And these member functions have a special characteristics that are often used in the program development. These characteristics are several different classes can also have a use or can use the same function name. The membership label will resolve their scope. Member functions can also access the private data of the class. Non-member functions cannot do that because they are using the public part, so they are not using the private parts also. And a member function can call another member function directly without using the dot operator. So without the dot operator, they cannot be used, they cannot be accessed within the data. Another method of defining a member function that can be used to replace the function declaration by actual function definition inside the class. So that must be defined inside the class, that must be used inside the class, that will be declared to define the member functions. So the coding is class item. There are two parts in this: number and the course. These are known as the data members of the variables. Then the public void get data int a float b. This is the declaration. Next is the inline function, that is a void put data void. So definition inside the class only. See out the number, see out the course. So there are two parts: put data, we have to display the values. So number and the course are displayed by using the see out. Then curly braces will be closed and the semicolon will be closed. And when a function is defined inside a class, so it is treated as an inline function. Therefore, each and every restrictions and the limitation that apply to an inline function are also applicable over here. Normally, only the small functions are defined inside the class definition. Next is a C++ program with the class. Yeah, this is the next class implementation example. There is a void get data int a float b function defined inside the class. So void put data void see out number and the cost. Then member function definition void item get data int a float b. Now the a will be assigned to the number and the b will be assigned to the cost. So int main item x, we have created the object x. So see out object, then x dot get data, that is calling the member function. So there are two parts, 100 and the 299.95. Then x dot put data. So there are two parts, one is a get data, one is a put data. Then item y, again we are created next object, another object, that is a y. So y dot get data, there are two parts in this. Then y dot put data. Then there is a return 0. So this program features a class item. So this class contains two private members or variables and two public functions. And this member function get data, which has been defined outside the class, also supplies values to both the variables. Note the use of the statement such as a number equals to a is a definition, function definition of the get data. They are showing that the member functions can have a direct access to the private data items. Yes. So these member functions are declared, these member functions are used as a variable that defines with the get data that have a direct access to the private data item. So this member function put data has been defined inside the class and therefore behaves like an inline function. Now this function also displays the value of the private variable number and the cost. And whatsoever the program they have created out, whatsoever the data they have created out, so there are two objects, x and the y, in two different statements. So this can be combined in the one statement also, item x and the y. So there are two parts, x and y. Here is the output that will be declared. So object x number is 100, cost is 299.95. Again object y number is 200, cost is 175, that I have given. And for the sake of illustrations, we are giving the inline function and other as external member function, because this program is only to judge what is the difference between the inline and the external functions. Now making it as outline basic or outside function inline. That means make the outside function that will be declared as an inline function. So one of the main objectives to separate the details of implementation, why we are going to separate with these, that will be class, that will be implementation from the class definition. and it is therefore good practice to define the member functions outside the class. And we can define a member function outside the class definition and still make it inline by just using the qualifiers inline in the header line of the function definition. This is the class item public void get data int a float b. Inline void item get data int a float b. Yeah, we can define, we can nest, we can do anything with these functions because this is a normal function that we are using now. So we can apply any of the formatting, any of the method with these member functions. They can be called by the object using the dot operator, as we have discussed. But there is an exception to this also. A member function can be called by using its names inside another member function also of the same class. That means the member should be private. That means they are joined for the one part. This is known as a nesting of the member functions. So IOStream using namespace, class set int mn, public void input, void display, and the int largest. Then the curly brace close, semicolon close. The int set largest void. If m is greater than equals to n, return m, else return n. Then void set input, input the values of m and the n, cout m and the n. Then display, for displaying the values, this is the largest value, then largest function will be called over here. Int main, set a dot input, a dot display, return 0. So input the values of m and n, 25 and 18, so largest value is 25. The next is a private member functions. Now the next part is private member functions. So they are also declared. Yeah, they are also declared within the same class. So it is normal practice to place all the data items in a private section. Therefore, all the functions in a public. So many situations may also require certain function to be hidden, like the private data from the outside call. So taken or tasks such as deleting an account in a customer file account, incrementing to an employee are the events of the serious consequences, and therefore the functions handling such tasks should have a restricted access. We can place these functions in the private section. So a private member function can only be called by another function, so that is a member of its class. Even though when we use the object that cannot be invoked a member function, that is again used with the dot operator. With the class sample int m void read void public void update void write. So there are two parts in this, update and the write. So if s1 is an object of sample, then s1 dot read, s1 dot write. Yeah. Now the next part is array within a class. We can also use the array within a class. It is not mandatory that we are only giving the few variables, 1, 2, 3 variables. No, but we can also pass the array within the or use the array within the class. The array can be used as a member variable in a class. So the following class definition is valid. There is a const int size equals to 10. So provides a value for the array size. Class array int a size public void set val display. So there are two parts, two functions that will be declared. One is a set val, one is a display. And this array variable a will be declared as a private member of the class array that can be used in the member functions like any other array variables. And we can also perform any operations on it. For example, in the above class definition, the member function set val sets the value of the elements of the array, and display function displays the value. Similarly, we may use other functions also to perform any other operations on the array values. Now let us consider the various example of the shopping detail. For example, this hash include IOStream const m equals to 80. So we have declared the constant value of m as a 50. Not 80, it is 50, it's my mistake. Class item, we have declared one item that includes two arrays, one normal variable. Array name is item code, that is contains 50. Why? How do I know 50? Because it is given m. Then float item price, then int count. So this is the public. Then void cnt void get item void display sum void remove void. The void item get item void cout enter the item code. Item code is count. Item cost. Price is again the count plus plus. Display sum 0, I is 0, I is less than count, I plus plus, sum is sum plus item price. Then it will be given as a total value, that is a sum. Again we are using the remove. For removing, we can remove the value, we can give the value as a 0. Then display items, we can also display the code, we can also display the value, that is a 0, count, so item code I and the item price I. Then for the gap of the line, so cout n, int main items order.cnt, int x, do while will be used. That will be used to add an item, display the total value, delete an item, display all the records. So this is used. That means do while will be used. So at least it will execute at least once. And in this again we are using the switch cases. Yeah, switch case. Yes, right.